Artificial intelligence is transforming the world. From healthcare, this is this hour.
Maybe we'll all have wires coming out of our bodies someday.
Artificial intelligence is transforming the world. From healthcare, this is actually potentially saving people's lives.
Yes, it absolutely is.
To transportation. Now we're going on self-driving mode?
Yes.
To protecting our troops.
I don't want the kill decision to be made by a sleep-deprived 19-year-old kid.
But what could that mean for humanity?
They'll be godlike in their ability to understand their powers.
And is AI dangerous in the wrong hands?
The political, military version of AI is on the horizon because of the rivalry with China.
When you hear the words artificial intelligence, what comes to mind? Take a second to think about it. Do you realize how prominent AI is in your life today? Maybe you use facial recognition on your smartphone, Siri, or a GPS to help you avoid traffic. One official definition of artificial intelligence is the capability of a machine to imitate intelligent human behavior. Imitate. But we have only scratched the surface. Will computers go so far as to transcend human behavior? Will we be cohabitating with robots? And will that make the world a better place? Or as one author you will hear from tonight puts it, are we headed toward a future that doesn't need us? Us, as in human beings. Artificial intelligence is changing our lives, from the way we do our jobs to the way we do business, to the way we drive a car to the way we get in front of disease, to the national security tools we use. It has potential to transform the world, making us safer and healthier, but at what cost? Tonight, the leading minds in AI will help us understand the impact of this expanding technology in how we live and work, the good, the bad, and the scary. This new technology brings with it realistic concerns. It is time to prepare yourself for the revolution. Your assistants are getting smarter. The next level of computing has arrived, and it's software that is studying your routines, listening to your voice and recognizing your speech, watching you work, learning your habits, enabling the routine tasks. Manage simple calls to return goods, process expense reports, organize data. Map out a ride and haul.
Devices get smarter with software, but the next kind of software is the AI kind of software, which takes a lot of information from the real world and can understand it in a way that's too intense, essentially, for people to program by hand, for programmers to do. So an AI can do things that are very hard for humans to do because it can look at millions of pictures and find common elements and look at a million eyes and understand very quickly which ones are diseased and which ones are not.
In certain areas of pathology and radiology, we can show, even in certain kinds of cancer detection, the computer does a better job than the doctor.
The machine will mine through large sets of data quickly, scanning the same patterns in thousands, millions of other people across the world. The more data that is collected, the better equipped it will be to anticipate your next move. Finish your next sentence. It is artificial intelligence. It's job killing and life saving.
Let's say we wanted to train a machine to be able to detect melanoma, right, as an example.
Dario Gil is the director of research at IBM.
That's a very well-defined task. If I have lots and lots of examples of the past, of things, skin lesions that were labeled melanoma versus not, I could use all those examples to train a machine, a neural network, to be able to sort of make a determination as to whether it is malign or not.
The AI healthcare market is slated to expand from $2.1 billion to $36.1 billion in 2025.
We've been a big investor in healthcare and a real believer. This is a long road, but this is one of the industries so badly in need of AI.
Ginny Rometty is the CEO of IBM, whose AI computer Watson mines and organizes data to get ahead of disease, from cancer to Parkinson's.
It is difficult for a doctor, the amount of data. And so we've been working away on Watson for Health. And in particular, we worked on oncology, was one of the early things we started on. We're now at 300 hospitals and over 125,000 patients around the world where the AI has helped the doctor identify the diagnosis and the appropriate treatment. Or now at Mayo Clinic, as an example, trained for clinical trial matching for breast cancer. Almost every patient goes through to see if there's a clinical trial match. So these are things that you didn't realize before, how either infrequently they were done or not done with precision.
This is actually potentially saving people's lives.
Yes, it absolutely is.
In 2014, I was diagnosed with breast cancer, and I was treated in Massachusetts General Hospital.
Based on her own diagnosis, MIT professor Regina Barzilay is using artificial intelligence to help with early detection.
They've discovered how much we really need AI. In terms of technology, information technology, I felt that we are in 19th century, even though MIT and MGH are just one stop away. It felt that they're ages away in terms of technology, and a lot of tasks which machines are doing very well in many other industries, they are not doing them in healthcare, which affects all of us.
Using data from over 60,000 patients, Professor Barzilay developed a model that can use a mammogram to learn patterns in breast tissue that could be precursors to malignant tumors. This deep learning model can predict if a patient is likely to develop breast cancer as far as 5 years into the future.
They're able to detect breast cancer earlier than a
It felt that they're ages away in terms of technology, and a lot of tasks which machines are doing very well in many other industries, they are not doing them in healthcare, which affects all of us.
Using data from over 60,000 patients, Professor Barzilay developed a model that can use a mammogram to learn patterns in breast tissue that could be precursors to malignant tumors. This deep if a patient is likely to develop breast cancer as far as 5 years into the future.
remarkable. They're able to detect breast cancer earlier than a radiologist might.
Marty Schmidt is the provost at MIT. whose teams are driving AI research.
And the combination of an educated radiologist and a well-tuned machine learning algorithm is doing really transformative things in terms of early detection of breast cancer. But it goes beyond that. We've got faculty that are basically pulling down all the records for all the ways in which chemicals have been synthesized that have been published in all the literature, and creating these large data sets that allow you to design specific chemicals, specific compounds. So you think about that in the realm of drug discovery.
But before saving lives, we will have to survive the kill, the job kill, that is. AI is eliminating white-collar jobs faster than you think.
Altogether, it's going to be a large number of jobs that will be displaceable by AI in the next 15 years.
That's later this hour, but first, the meteoric rise of AI. We'll be right back. How much?
Whoa, I passed way up. Whoa. Let me get this right.
This new...
Sorry about that, folks.
Breast cancer.
Right about that.
Your doctor, if
a is capable.
Let's back it up a little bit. Oh.
Come here.
Look at the beef in that gravy.
Right.
Electro, come here. And here he comes, ladies and gentlemen, walking up to greet you under his own power.
7 foot tall, 250-pound Electro the robot dazzled the crowds at the 1939 World's Fair in Queens, New York. But it was a man controlling the machine. The creation of artificial intelligence, where a machine could move and think for itself, was decades away.
A robot may not harm a human being, or through inaction allow a human being to come to harm.
iRobot author Isaac Asimov's 3 laws of robotics were dreamed up in the 1940s.
A robot must obey orders given it by qualified personnel. Rule number 3, a robot must protect its own existence.
Though a literary idea at the time, the concept of how artificially intelligent robots would act inspired. In the years since, AI has seen a number of major milestones. 1950, computer scientist Alan Turing, whose Enigma code-breaking machine helped the Allies win World War II, conceptualizes a way to determine if a machine is capable of thinking like a human. A computer passes the Turing test if a person can't tell the difference between the machine's answers and a human's. 1955, the term artificial intelligence is coined by John McCarthy, looking to make a machine which could reason like a human. Scientists begin to debate if AI could become a reality.
I'm convinced that machines can and will think. I don't mean that machines will behave like men. I don't think for a very long time we're going to have a difficult problem distinguishing a man from a robot. And I don't think my daughter will ever marry a computer.
1964, a chatbot is developed at MIT and holds conversations. She is named Eliza after Eliza Doolittle, a character from My Fair Lady who was taught to speak English properly so she can become more cultured. 1968, the film 2001: A Space Odyssey is released, featuring one of the most famous AI computers in the history of movies, HAL 9000. The film both intrigues and terrifies viewers with a visionary look at thinking computers.
This conversation can serve no purpose anymore.
Over the next year, after Eliza Doolittle, Character from My Fair Lady, who was taught to speak English properly so she can become more cultured. 1968, the film 2001: A Space Odyssey is released, featuring one of the most famous AI computers in the history of movies, HAL 9000. The film both intrigues and terrifies viewers with a visionary look. Computers.
This conversation can serve no purpose anymore.
Over the next years, computers go mainstream. Millions of Americans bring a Mac or PC into their home. Then 1997, AI scores another win, literally and figuratively. Deep Blue, the chess-playing IBM computer, defeats world champion Garry Kasparov. That same year, meanwhile at MIT and
Not my major concern. A major concern is we give individuals so much power that we collectively in our society lose the ability to make choice because they'll choose for us.
that same year, a robot called Kismet is set to simulate human emotions. 2000, as we see a new millennium, amidst euphoria over the dot-com revolution, Sun Microsystems co-founder Bill Joy pens a piece for Wired magazine titled "Why the Future Doesn't Need Us." Warning that new technologies could make human beings an endangered species.
It's not that we're going to become robots. That's not my major concern. A major concern is we give individuals so much power that we collectively in our society lose the ability to make choice because they'll choose for us.
In 2011, AI goes further into the mainstream as Siri becomes a virtual assistant for all new iPhone users.
This town is known as Sin City, and its downtown is Glitter Gulch. Watson.
What is Las Vegas?
Correct.
That same year, IBM's Watson easily defeats two human Jeopardy champions.
41,413 and a two-day total of 77,147.
Then in May of 2017, a symbolic moment during a match of Go, considered to be the world's most complex game. Here too, a computer wins.
So what we're going to see is...
Today, AI is everywhere. I visited IBM's AI lab in New York, one of 12 computing labs across the world. Here, Dario Gale's team is trying to get ahead of wildfires, using artificial intelligence to predict which forests are most vulnerable.
AI really relies on data. So the first thing that the system is able to do is we have hundreds of different layers of geospatial data that are available to the system. This is actually satellite data of where wildfires actually occurred, right? So we are going to have some ground truth about where fires took place, in this case in California. And what we do here is we take layers, and we have selected a few layers: vegetation index of the United States, daily precipitation, and temperature data. So we take that, and in a matter of hours, we can create an AI model that uses that data to create a wildfire index prediction.
Meanwhile, at MIT in Cambridge, Massachusetts, Professor Daniela Rus and her students are finding ways to do routine tasks better. Professor Rus is in charge of the Computer Science and Artificial Intelligence Lab at MIT. Today, her students are identifying jobs that people don't want, like separating recycled bottles and cans, jobs that are better suited for robots.
So here's a robot that uses a kind of a soft hand, and this robot is able to grab an object, squeeze it a little bit to figure out what material it's made of, and now it decides whether it's made of metal, plastic, or paper, and it recycles it automatically. And this is extraordinary because recycling is such a terrible job. And so with this work, we hope to provide people working in the recycling industry with the ability to operate the robots maybe from the distance and not really be stuck in an environment that is so unpleasant.
But artificial intelligence is only as effective as the information it has learned. If there's bias in the data, the machine will reflect it. For instance, this picture made the rounds on social media to pinpoint. Researchers used it to test if AI programs could differentiate between a Chihuahua puppy and a blueberry muffin.
Now I want to throw something at the evangelical world pertaining to the evangelist, preachers, ministers, clergymen, etc., etc., etc. All throughout my life, I was taught in the church community around here in this particular area that the white horse pertaining to the horseman that it talks about in Revelations chapter 6 verses 1 and 2, that this horseman that only Christ could open that particular seal on was going to be an imitation, was going to be a fraud, was going to be basically someone who gave the appearance of being godly and good, but in reality was wicked and evil and demonic. In other words, this particular person that a great deal of the churches around here had already been hoodwinked in believing was basically going to be the Antichrist disguised as presenting itself as being good, but in reality, instead of it being good, it was going to be evil. That was what the initial thought was whenever I was a child growing up, listening to various teachers, preachers, evangelists, ministers, trying to interpret the Bible correctly. Whenever you get to looking at fraudulent features are fraudulent entities pertaining to them being nothing more than what the Bible describes as being blasphemers, which a blasphemer is somebody that knowingly is fraudulent, that is evil and demonic, but they're presenting themselves as being good. They tried to accuse Jesus of him being a fraud. And the whole time, instead of Jesus being the one that was a fraud, it was those who was accusing Jesus of being a fraud. But is it possible, as well as probable now, not just possible, but probable, that the very item that we're now looking at, which is AI, artificial intelligence, is going to come onto the scene towards being one of the greatest inventions of mankind. That's basically going to have all the solutions to humanity's problems. That's going to present itself as it being the supernatural intelligence of the universe. Now you keep in mind, you can put any face that you want to on this invention. You can turn it into a male, a female. You can turn it into a dog, a cat, a horse, a lion, a bear. You can turn it into a human that looks identically to a human being of today. But is it possible that their theory that they taught 35, 40, 50 years ago pertaining to this imposter that's going to come onto the scene, that is going to fool humanity to the point that people are going to turn to it as being the new savior of society? I'm not saying that at first it's going to present itself as being the new savior in the spiritual world, but the new savior to society. Is it possible that what the Bible was talking about is this very invention that we're now looking at, called artificial intelligence, that ultimately is going to come onto the scene as presenting itself as being good to humanity, but in reality, eventually, may very well turn on humanity, that the Bible talks about in the book of Revelations? For he who did not worship the beast that was created by man, he who did not worship the beast, and he who did not take the beast mark or the beast number, which is 666, will literally, physically have to be beheaded or excommunicated from society to the point that they will literally have to starve to death if they do not participate with the beast. You know, we're reaching an era now in the 21st century, in 2020, unlike any other era that we've ever had to deal with in the past. You keep in mind, just in my generation alone, we've went from the standard black and white TV to the old-fashioned refrigerator to now we've got washers and dryers that are built simultaneously together. We've got ice boxes that can talk to us, that'll tell you the exact temperature on the bottom as well as the top, that'll make crushed ice, cubed ice, or any other kind of ice. We've got appliances now that basically self-communicate with each other. In addition to our smartphone technology that we currently have, that is now coming onto the scene towards being a savior to society. Like I said, this is a $64,000 question that I have looked at in-depthly, that obviously we're not going to reverse it. You're not going to be able to take artificial intelligence out of the equation of society in today, pertaining to running airplanes and running cities and knowing how to turn off and on appliances and how to be conservative with energy and how to basically clean your very own living room or your kitchen and have dinner or supper fixed before you ever get home. We're talking about these particular items here that will take the place of nannies towards being able to take care of your children, watch the elderly, clean your house, and possibly even be able to win or divert wars in the future. And if I was to have been talking about this stuff 15, 20, 25, 30, 45, 50 years ago, I would have been laughed completely out of this community. People would have looked at me such as, you are crazy. The same way they looked at the Wright brothers whenever the Wright brothers had an ideal in thinking that mankind could fly like a bird. And everybody mocked them and made fun of them. The same way with Alexander Bell and other great inventors who had an ideal and who dedicated their time and services in that ideal towards fulfilling that dream, that vision, to the point that now society is no longer getting around on horse and buggy, but now we can get on a private leisure jet and get from point A to point B in almost the speed of light. I said almost. We haven't got there yet, pertaining to the actual speed of light, but they are working on it, trust me. I think they can break the sound barrier 7 times. The human body will still hold up. I've forgotten now exactly where that puts. Probably somewhere around 2,500 miles an hour. Just within the distance of our atmosphere. Of course, we know by getting up into the space shuttle, we can do as fast as 22 to 24,000 miles an hour with special suits, special equipment, special pressurized fuselages, etc., etc. Once more, these are all items of today that 25, 30, 40, 50 years ago was looked upon as being an ideal, a dream. Visionaries thought of this stuff, kind of like the Wright brothers thought about the airplanes. If you could resurrect the Wright brothers today and stand them upright up onto the planet and ask them a simple question, look what you have manufactured, and then get on TV and on the internet and realize how many people are now engaging their transportation from point A to point B by some form of aviation, they would probably want to go back into their graves, shut the casket, and bury my head back into the ground. Because they, at the time that they invented the airplane, had no earthly ideal how that it was going to revolutionize the transportation of the planet all over the world. The same way with artificial intelligence. I bring these things up to you not to discourage you pertaining to artificial intelligence, but to allow for my viewers to know that there is a mystery of a deep, dark, hidden rhyme and reason of why did the Bible in the book of Revelations of the end time biblical Bible predictions, why did it distinctively talk about the beast and the rise of the beast and he who did not worship the beast? You know, some may think, well, that was a metaphor. Others have looked at the first seal in the book of Revelations and said, well, here is the beast, for it's going to come disguised. Or is it possible that this, what we're looking at right now, is in fact going to be the beast? To be or not to be was Einstein's revolutionary theory of the existence into the future. Once more, can you detect the difference between the poodle dog, 2 eyes and a nose, versus a muffin?
This picture made the rounds on social media to pinpoint. Researchers used it to test if AI programs could differentiate between a Chihuahua puppy and a blueberry muffin. The results were mixed.
I like to think of these tools as our interns running around doing errands for us, but then ultimately it is the job of the human to interpret what the system has done. And so for this reason, the use of these technologies requires that we think carefully about how we ensure consumer confidence.
In March of 2018, a deadly setback. An Uber self-driving car made national headlines after striking and killing pedestrian Elaine Herzberg in Tempe, Arizona. The incident heightened the public's concerns over just how ready we are for self-driving vehicles to hit the streets. A self-driving vehicle features a suite of sensors that perceive the world around it, similar to how we use our eyes, and then AI interprets the information, like our brain, to make the driving decisions.
It's a safer way to get around because all of the driving experience that we train and test the vehicle, it never forgets that experience.
Ryan Selesky is the founder and CEO of Argo AI, an autonomous vehicle platform company headquartered in Pittsburgh. He says self-driving cars will be safer than humans behind the wheel.
It never gets distracted. It constantly gets better. And in doing so, we're going to be able to eventually someday, I believe, eliminate roadway deaths and fatalities and injuries.
What's so cool about that team is they're teaching the car to see, so it has to have perception.
Jim Hackett is the CEO of Ford Motor.
They're teaching it to decide, so as it gets input, it has to make choices, turning, stopping, and it's teaching it to direct.
Ford recently joined forces with German auto giant Volkswagen in investing $2.6 billion in Argo.
Billion.
Now we're going on self-driving mode?
Yes. We are. So you can see from your side when the heads-up lights, you see some green lights just above the dashboard?
Yes.
I took a trip out to Argo headquarters where the company's president, Pete Rander, took me for a test run.
The computer said, I want to go that direction. We told it to go that way. So it's turned on the turn signal. The other one is a steady green. When there's a steady green light, you know we're in auto. If Brandon ever believes that he is no longer comfortable, he will intervene and take over. That's a next part of the safety protocol. Because there are real people on the road, it's a public shared space, and we can learn everything we need to after the fact by taking log data that we're storing on the computers in the car. We can pull that data out and replay what was going on, what was the car thinking, and what it would have done.
Am I in danger of my car getting hacked and driving somewhere that I don't want to go?
Well, this is a big challenge today, even with vehicles. So the way we design vehicles today is we, in our architecture, we cordon off the system so that a hacker can't get inside and have control of the whole car, particularly the power, the acceleration, and the steering, those kinds of things. It is the kind of thing that you're trading here, which is
You're going to have all this power that will help you have a better day in your life, that some bad people will try and figure out how to manipulate that.
Okay, I want to stop for a second. In this innovation that they're talking about, pertaining to this being an imposter into the human society, the Bible talks about in the first 4 chapters of Revelations, he who have not known the depths of Satan. Whenever someone mentions the word Satan, they automatically picture a darkly image or a red firing dragon with 2 horns and a tail and a pitchfork. And in reality, Satan can come in such of a mysterious, appealing form that unless you have a trained eye to identify the works of Satan and the inventions of Satan, you'll never be able to catch on to what Christ was talking about in the first 4 chapters of Revelations. It says that he who have not known the depths of Satan. There is so many different depths of Satan that I could go down a long list right now, and I guarantee you I could not mention all of them in a 24-hour period. From AI to sex toys to porn to your smartphone technology to turning on your lights, things running automatically, going from A to B, point A to B, from having air conditioning in the summer to having heat in the winter. I could go on and on and on of inventions that man has created just within the past 100 years. Just within the past 100 years that have put us where we are today as far as innovation, technology, that is now dominating society. Literally dominating society. So whenever a person reads that in the first 4 chapters of Revelations, he who have not known the depths of Satan, the first thing that you think of is something eerie, something creepy, something horrible, something evil, something demented, pertaining to breaking the commandments of God, pertaining to thou shalt not kill, or stealing, or being a murderer, or any of the above towards breaking the commandments of God. That's what I thought whenever I first read the first 4 chapters of Revelations pertaining to the depths of Satan. But as I look deeper into the depths of Satan, putting both what Christ was talking about on the front end of the book of Revelations, basing it off of what the book of Revelations was metaphorically talking about as you got further into Revelations, pertaining to the beast and the mark of the beast, I got to understanding that, you know what, this isn't talking about some sort of metaphor like it's going to be some Loch Ness monster that's going to come out of the ocean. It's not going to necessarily be some sort of a creature that's going to crawl out of the water that humanity's going to be frightened to death of. Because if humanity was frightened to death of it, it never would be able to take a hold. It never would be able to deceive the nations. What we're talking about here is an imposter. An imposter that has come onto the platform of civilization to the point that now we have become spoilt with air conditioning. We have become spoilt with heating. We have been spoilt with our automobiles. We have been spoilt with all these gizmos and gadgets and all these other items that bring, we think, comfort into our lives, to the point that now we can be multitaskers. We can all be multitaskers to the point that we can get from A to B in a split, almost in a split second of a time. And we can do so many things at so many different levels that now we can be multi-achievers because we live in the 21st century in this thing called innovation. You know, doctors have proven that the biggest leading killer in America and throughout the world is stress. People trying to do too much. They're overloading their brains, they're overloading their bodies, they're overloading themselves towards doing things that they wasn't supposed to be performing and in doing. Which leads me to the last part of what I want to say to my viewers in regards to this show towards artificial intelligence. Let's say that this gets kicked off to the point that it becomes a fairy tale world to where everything is running effectively and efficiently, and there's no car wrecks, and there's no diseases, and everybody has a course of order in knowing where to go, when to go, how to do, where to do, when to do, and we make everything foolproof to where no bad actor can come onto the scene and breach or hack into a person's car, or breach or hack into a person's bank account, or breach or hack into a person's identity towards abusing their identity. Let's say we turn on all the right whistles and all the right buttons to the point that everything gets to running harmoniously, just like a clock, just like a piece of machinery, to where it's just absolutely perfect. I mean perfect. We have learned what to do with our waste. We have learned what to do with our deceased. We have learned what to do with our plastic bottles. We're no longer poisoning the oceans. We have learned to hold down the carbon dioxide poisonings that we're putting into the atmosphere, and we have created an atmosphere of utopia that even the Bible talks about. Even the Bible talks about this utopia. What's going to happen to society whenever God returns back that has been predicted of the second coming? Whenever he comes back for a great reward for the saints, as far as the first resurrection. And as God is circling the planet, gathering up the elect from the four corners of the earth, the Bible says that he's going to come back in flaming fire, taking vengeance upon them who know not God, and upon them who obey not the gospel. And everything that we currently know of today that is standing, that has been manufactured or built by mankind, according to the Bible, is going to be destroyed by God and God alone, towards bringing fire and brimstone into this planet. That way, God and God alone can recreate a new heaven and a new earth. What's going to happen to the people that's going to be left down here during this time? Whenever God sets ablaze everything that's either commercial or residential on fire. And people no longer have these gizmos and gadgets. Their batteries go dead because there's no way of plugging up the resources towards making sure that their icebox comes on and they get their special ice cubes and they have hot water and cold water and they have heat in the winter and coolness in the summer. What's going to happen to humanity? I'm going to tell you what's going to happen to humanity. Humanity is going to fall into a time of great distress. The Bible says that it will be a time of trouble such as mankind has never, ever experienced or seen before. Ever. And during this time of great tribulation is, in fact, when the great deceiver, the actual Antichrist, will come onto the scene. And that's whenever he will manipulate society once more again in thinking that this is the best invention since the Wright brothers, who had created the airplanes. And people once more are going to fall for this entrapment. They are going to fall for this scheme. They are going to fall for this trap. And at that particular point in time is whenever God himself will bring the New Jerusalem down from heaven. And that's whenever not only the seals will be opened, but the trumpets will be sounded. And that is whenever the great wrath of God will devour not only humanity, but will devour the actual Antichrist, who deceived mankind and cast him into a prison for approximately 1,000 years. During that time, the Bible says that the spirit world, the evangelical beings, the angels of God, will rule and reign, and angels will literally be preaching the Word of God to humanity while great suffering is occurring upon to the planet. After the 1,000 years, after all the trumpets, after all the seals, after the biggest part of the fulfillment of the book of Revelations has come into an existence, according to the Bible, there will be a third final resurrection called the Great White Throne Judgment. In this judgment, the Bible says that even the dead will be resurrected. Anybody who has ever come into an existence since the beginning of time will stand in front of the Great White Throne Judgment and give an account for all their works, whether or not they was good works or bad. And according to the Bible, in the spirit world, because at this point in time, everything will basically be dissolving into the spirit world. It says that God himself will loose Lucifer, the Antichrist, the false prophet, the last and final time, where he will go into Gog and Magog to deceive the nations one last final time. And there will be just as many in the spirit world that will be deceived by the great deceiver once more again towards people falling for his bait and following after this deranged, demented being. That's whenever God will say enough is enough. And he will take great fire from the New Jerusalem that will literally consume those who follow after this Antichrist, deranged, demented being. And will consume them. And will literally take the Antichrist, Lucifer, who challenged him thousands of years ago, and throw him into a devilish, tormentive, firing pit, where he and the evangelical beings that fell from the heaven, cast them off into the pits of hell, where they will burn forever and ever and ever. And according to the Word of God, it says that God will wipe away all our tears, for all the formal things will have passed, and that there will be a brand new heaven and a brand new earth. And that's where Christ will reign and basically be the light of the universe. And humanity will not have to worry about being tempted, tricked, bamboozled, or deceived no more again. I thought this was imperative for me to bring this out, pertaining to this revolution that they're talking about, evolving in this artificial intelligence that now basically a great deal of the world holds in their hand. They claim that there is more technology in smartphone technology than the first Apollo that left the Earth, that circled the planet. So as we get further into AI, as we get further into the fulfillment of biblical Bible prophecy fulfilling itself, let's always keep in mind, whenever it talks about the depths of Satan, and it talks about the beast in the book of Revelations, one may be challenged to accept reality towards what has already been pre-selected of its existence in the very time frame that you and I are living in the 21st century.
Try and figure out how to manipulate that.
When we come back, if machines are so good at our jobs, where does that leave the rest of us? Next, the power of AI sparks debate about the ethics of unleashing it.
AI can be used, just like any other tool, for a positive resource.
Included in most medical.
Or it can be used for a negative resource. Same way with nuclear. Nuclear can be used for a very, very advanced positive resource. Or nuclear can be used
Care Advantage Plan
for a very, very negative resource.
Ditch the old way.
like me.
Long commercials.
Tower used AI cameras to track citizens, and in this case, identify anyone attending the protest. China has applied AI-powered facial recognition through an advanced and unprecedented state-sponsored surveillance network.
China's willing to do them, to be much more aggressive. It doesn't see any constraints.
Peter Thiel is the founder of Palantir.
Just to be clear, I don't think we should be copying China in that dimension, but they are willing to use and apply AI in all these ways where, we're slower for both good and bad reasons.
The ability of a computer to recognize a person's face can be used for something as simple as unlocking your phone or cataloging your photos. This AI bar in London uses your face to put you in a queue as you walk up to the bar, so the bartender knows who's next up for a cocktail. No country has invested more in AI-fueled facial recognition than China. But fears over the threat to privacy and human rights expand across the world.
China has so much data for facial recognition because they are running this police state, this surveillance state.
Palmer Luckey is the founder of Anduril Industries. His company makes drones and military warfare empowered by AI.
I don't think that people in the United States want or will accept mass surveillance of our civilian population. I'm certainly not ever going to work on that type of technology because I don't actually particularly want it to be used that way.
San Francisco became the first big American city to ban the use of facial recognition in 2019. Civil liberty groups worried about potential abuse by government.
It will help us cure cancer. I think not just in a lifetime, but hopefully in a decade. It will help address almost every issue that we are concerned about societally. But it will also raise new concerns, something like facial recognition. It can be used to follow us around a shopping mall. It can be used in other countries to open the door to mass surveillance.
Google pulled out of a major contract with the Pentagon called Project Maven. Employees objected because the project uses AI to interpret video footage from drones, pinpointing buildings, vehicles, and human targets, enabling Air Force analysts to more precisely identify targets. Google says it's as simple as its principles did not line up with the government's. Facial recognition is only one part of the power of AI, from machine learning of images to data collection, and AI's potential to replace millions of jobs. The impact of artificial intelligence is so big, it is sparking a debate on exactly how to unleash it in an ethical way.
It's a little like nuclear power. You just don't let everyone have nuclear bombs.
Steven Schwarzman is the chairman and CEO of private equity firm, the Blackstone Group.
You gifted MIT $350 million, and they are going to build the Steve Schwarzman School of Computing. Tell me why you did it. This is a big number, and it's obviously going to move the needle at MIT.
And this isn't a new ideal. I mean, back in the 70s, they had the $6 Million Man, they had the Bionic Woman. These was all inventions that was being developed and ideals even back in the 50s and the 60s. So don't think that this is something that they haven't put a great deal of thought and research into. They have really got it down to the magnitude that now AI can base off of voice recognition of anger, hostility, joy, happiness, all off of tone frequencies that come off of your voice. They put all that into the equation. Think about this for a second. If the military has super night vision to where they can see at night, and if the military has scopes that will literally tell you the temperature, the wind velocity, and it will automatically pre-select or set your scope based upon feet, meters, based upon the distance, to where it will know whether or not you're going to be shooting too high or too low. based upon the wind, based upon the temperature, based upon the sunlight, based upon the other type of frequencies that it picks up on. If we have that type of technology today in doing all these things with our military, it's just a matter of time before they're going to take this same development, harness it into a hull, call it the Bionic Woman, call it the $6 Million Man, call it a robot, call it whatever you want to call it. But it's just a matter of time before this is going to become as prevalent in our lives as the smartphone. The very instrument that we can now hold in our hand. A matter of fact, they had a meeting this year in Las Vegas pertaining to AI of different things, and they're coming out with a folded laptop that basically you can put in your pocket just like a regular phone, but you can open it up and it turns into a laptop. They're making drones that'll literally be able to fly people around in the air from point A to point B to do away with the traffic problem. They're making all kinds of innovative ideals, state-of-the-art technology that will do stuff right down to a millimeter. Just like whenever I was working on cars, working with the Genesis technology as well as the Shark infrared as well as sonar technology, they've got stuff now that will get stuff so precise that there is no way that the human eye can even begin to challenge it. The same way in your carpentry, your construction field. Whenever it comes to building a house completely square, all 8 angles, all different dynamics, they can build a house today that is within 3 millimeters from corner to corner, not only in the ceilings, but corner to corner in the floor, on each room, on each compartment, on each home. Perfect. Absolutely perfect. Almost down to the preciseness of how they created the pyramids. Almost. And that's pretty accurate.
Well, I met a lot of the people, and they had a national policy of developing artificial intelligence using their universities, their companies, and their military. And I looked at what was going on in the United States, and we didn't have that level of focus.
Later, Schwartzman pledged an additional $190 million to Oxford University.
Can we implement artificial intelligence in an ethical way?
Well, part of it's in the hands of people, and so we can, control, regulate other types of mechanisms to introduce the technology in a way that is really good for people and minimizes disruption. It's like the Industrial Revolution on steroids, and so it is really important that there's monitoring and certain rules.
Coming up, are you ready for the disruption? The jobs most vulnerable to AI.
Because I'm Batman.
His premiere. When the more the routine job, the more AI will take over.
Kai-Fu Lee has been called the Oracle of AI. He is the founder and CEO of private equity firm Sinovation Ventures, where he acquires AI startups. Lee is also the former president of Google China.
Routine white-collar jobs like customer service, telemarketing, and loan officers and tellers and jobs like that will be the first to be challenged. Then repetitive blue-collar jobs like dishwasher, assembly line workers, and a little bit later, drivers also will be challenged.
Lee says in the next 15 years, 40% of jobs will be displaced by machines. He believes any job which relies on data is vulnerable. Things like mortgage brokers evaluating your eligibility, or radiologists reading a mammogram, all can be done easier and faster by a machine. Then later, jobs like trucking will be replaced.
The vehicle will replace some kind of jobs that drivers are required to do today, but it's going to create so many new opportunities because of its expansive effect on the economy. The whole nature of warehousing is going to change. These piles of inventory that are wait to be sold or in the wrong place, with autonomy, you can move things around very quickly. We can make the size of the vehicles that are moving them be very large over the road trucks, and they can be really small pods. Amazon's already testing one of these today.
We've seen technology replace workers for years now, but AI is deepening the threat. It goes far beyond truckers into healthcare, retail, financial services, and fast food. Supermarket chain Tesco is developing AI stores that will track what shoppers add to their carts and simply charge their card as they leave.
According to my understanding, Walmarts out in California have already got robots that will start to take the place of stockers on putting products back on the shelves so that people will have adequate supplies of bread, adequate supplies of this, adequate supplies of that they're already developing that type of technology out in California.
Amazon does the same. It's also using robots to move inventory in its warehouses, and it's testing drones to deliver packages. And if you want fries with that, some McDonald's are replacing cashiers with self-service ordering kiosks and AI-powered voice technology at its drive-thrus. Other burger joints are even experimenting with robots in the kitchen. Flippy the Robot is the world's first autonomous robotic kitchen assistant. It flips burgers and can learn and acquire new skills over time. And since machines don't get tired or irritated, companies are increasingly using speech recognition. Marketing at call centers instead of people. Speech recognition has become so sophisticated, surveys show customer satisfaction is higher with a machine than a person.
It's something that is broadly being deployed. I mean, to give an example, the Royal Bank of Scotland works with technology from IBM, Watson Assistant, and they have about 86% customer satisfaction in that engagement, and almost half of all the calls now are managed automatically.
Kai-Fu Lee predicts that 50 to 70% of workers at these call centers could soon be replaced.
As long as a job is routine, can be defined by an objective function, and is quantitative in nature, over time it'll eventually get displaced.
Kai-Fu Lee says 40% of jobs could go away in the next decade.
Well, I'll believe it when I see it, I guess, because it's not yet showing up in any of the numbers. The thing to understand is most jobs are not repetitive. We're not really an agricultural society because the repetitive parts of agriculture were automated, 100 years ago with tractors and farm equipment. We're not really an industrial society anymore in the sense of having vast numbers of manufacturing jobs because a lot of manufacturing has been automated. So in a way, the parts that could easily be automated have already been automated. And then the question is, all the sort of services, if you really want to automate your yoga instructor, your kindergarten teacher, your nurse in a doctor's office. I suspect those will not get automated quickly at all.
Corporate adoption of AI is expected to soar within the next few years, the way investment in the digital economy did in the 90s. Venture capitalists plowed a record $9.3 billion into AI startups last year, with now some 2,000 companies with AI as a core part of their business model globally. PricewaterhouseCoopers says the deployment will add almost $16 trillion to the global GDP in the next decade.
Is AI going to put everybody out of work? I am not worried about this. We are so unimaginative about what future jobs are going to look like and what they're going to be.
The superstar companies, the really big companies that have grown to, say, 100 billion and up, a lot of those companies will be using that kind of machine learning technology and robots to make their operations more efficient. So, you know, Amazon's trying to get rid of people delivering packages to your door with a little scooter or a drone or whatever. A lot of it is about how do I take technology and get people out of the loop to cut costs.
When we come back, ethics in the military. Who should make the call to kill, man or machine?
Well, as of about 2 or 3 days ago, it was man that done that. And man made a error in taking out an airplane pertaining to citizens that man never should have done. So maybe in ways, maybe we would be better off if a machine was deciphering in those areas. I don't know. I just know this, that it's a vision that is now becoming a reality. Just like traveling in an airplane. Just like walking into your house and flipping a switch and electricity coming on. Matter of fact, now you don't even have to flip a switch. All you got to do is tell it to turn the lights on, or better than that, tell your phone that will tell it to turn on before you ever even get to the door. The old days of first discovering the wheel and fire, we have evolved beyond that. And I tell my viewers that if you can't adapt to this new type of technology towards survival skills, odds are you're probably not going to be able to survive very long. In being diversified in these areas.
German-born physicist Klaus Fuchs helped develop the atomic bomb as part of the Manhattan Project during World War II. This powerful weapon gave any country who obtained it a military advantage, the likes of which had never been seen before. Fuchs
splitting of the atom
changed the world when he delivered our secrets to the Soviets. More than 70 years later, the next generation of powerful military technology is here. And some say it has the potential to do more damage than the nuclear bomb. It is artificial intelligence.
Vladimir Putin said that he who wins in AI will become the ruler of the world. Putin believes they're going to win with AI. And so most of the work that we do is around artificial intelligence and autonomous systems, basically building robots and artificial intelligence that does a great job of working with people. People should not have to be in the line of fire doing them. I think it's the same thing with a lot of military jobs. The guy who's driving the truck, on the convoy, that's a job for an AI, not a person. Bomb disposal is going to be handled largely by AI and robots, and it should be.
The government investment in unclassified R&D for AI technologies is up 40% since 2015. The president's fiscal year 2019 budget requests, for the first time in history, to designate AI and unmanned autonomous systems as administration priorities. Some say, however, the problem is China is spending much more on AI. Investment and financing in AI reached $39.5 billion in 2017. with China accounting for 70% of that spend.
AI is growing by leaps and bounds, and we're using it to help control drones in the air as well as on the sea. And China also is rapidly building this capability. In fact, I think their advancement is greater than ours.
The thing about the United States is that we are at a strategic disadvantage because of the ethics that we have. We're not willing to play dirty. We're not willing to let machines decide what targets to kill and not kill entirely on their own with no human supervision. Russia and China don't have a problem with any of those things.
Earlier, we mentioned Project Maven, the $250 million Pentagon contract that Google walked away from after an employee protest. Anduril Industries later won that contract.
In the United States, it's pretty great that these companies have the right to do that. I don't want companies to do this. I want them to work with the U.S. Department of Defense, but they do have the right to walk away. In China, that's not the case. There's no difference between their civil sector and between their military sector. It's all one thing. And that's why when you help Chinese companies work on artificial intelligence, you are almost directly helping the Chinese military work on artificial intelligence. A lot of people in Silicon Valley don't really understand this. A lot of people in Silicon Valley, a lot of companies in Silicon Valley see China as the ultimate business opportunity, not the ultimate adversary.
And while Google pulled out of the Pentagon contract, the company does have an AI lab in China, something Peter Thiel says is a national security risk.
The crux of the argument is that the crown jewels of Google's R&D effort are the AI, artificial intelligence technology, and this, AI means a lot of different things. It can be used in a lot of different ways, but it clearly has a lot of military applications for processing satellite images, helping create process data, automating drone warfare, cyber warfare. There are all these ways that AI is a dual-use thing, like nuclear technology has both military and civilian uses.
We reached out to Google. A spokesperson told us the allegations are baseless.
The way that civil-military integration, civil-military fusion works is it says that any innovation that happens in China's industrial economy must be brought ultimately to the People's Liberation Army. It's part of their objective to close the gap with the U.S. military. I mean, China is building a military that's designed for conflict with the United States and our allies.
China's Belt and Road Strategy, together with its 2025 goals, target the country to become the largest superpower, economically and militarily. They've set up military bases across the South China Sea and the world. And it's pursuing AI to track citizens and military deployments.
I'm going to stop right there for a second before the Secretary of State speaks there. Let's back up real quick. Right there. Another point pertaining to this artificial intelligence can be looked upon as weaponizing the same thing as nuclear, to the point that if a country becomes so advanced with their AI, they could literally weaponize it the same way as a nuclear bomb or the same way as biological warfare, as far as creating a chemical that will literally put another country to its knees. Literally take over a complete, total nation against its will. Because it's got advanced AI and there's no way that you can compete against it. So the only way that America has a chance of defeating other countries that are in the development stages of AI is for us to get on board with the same thing, and hopefully ours will either exceed or at least match their capabilities. That way we don't have to worry about their AI interfering are taking over our way of life that we are familiar with over here in America. This is very crucial. People don't realize it's almost like a concoction that if you don't manufacture it just right, it can blow up in your face. This can be weaponized in so many different ways, just like North Korea and other countries, without proper barriers, without proper firewalls, can literally come in and shut down a whole town. Bad actors can literally shut down a whole city. A matter of fact, New Orleans has already been hit 3 or 4 times in 2019 towards people basically holding them as hostage. And a lot of times they're better off in going ahead and paying the ransom than they are to have to reboot everything, because once you go in and reboot everything, it costs lots of money to do that. Lots of money, lots of hours, lots of etc. to be able to do that. And sometimes you're better off if you can just pay the ransom and tell them to go away and thank you and for not putting in these bugs and all these viruses that is going to take days, if not weeks, to get out.
South China Sea and the world. And it's pursuing AI to track citizens and military deployments.
The Chinese behavior is aggressive along every dimension of international power. Their weapon systems are getting better. They're investing heavily in missile systems, space technology, all of those things that can project power beyond their own country.
Using AI in the military raises important questions. Who should be in charge of making the call to kill? Is it man or is it machine? An army of thousands of drones could be programmed to shoot at objects and vehicles that appear to be hostile. But who will determine if they are in fact hostile? And will there be enough time to change the call if needed when handled by machines, reacting in seconds?
If we don't lead and if we don't define the rules for how AI is used in warfare, it will be defined by Russia. It will be defined by China.
AI is quickly becoming a critical part of modern warfare. So how can AI do things better than people?
No, I mean, there's a whole bunch of things that AI can do better than people. For example, let's say that you wanted to predict where you're going to need certain military assets before you perform some action. Doing that kind of prediction takes huge teams of people doing very complex analysis of enormous quantities of data. And it's something that people can do if they have enough time, but if you need to do it, snap your fingers and it's done, an AI can just work much faster than a person could. Or let's say you want real-time surveillance analysis across hundreds of thousands or millions of sensors. An AI can take data from 1,000 different eyes and bring it all into one super powerful brain and think about what it's seeing from those 1 million eyes. A person can't do that.
We're in right now what's called the drone zone of Anduril Industries. The company's core technology is Lattice, which uses sensors and artificial intelligence to help the military. It allows law enforcement and first responders to be aware of their surroundings. So, for example, this drone can see as far as 600 meters away.
The ultimate idea is to give soldiers and other first responders a perfect picture of everything that's going on around them, and also a perfect picture of what's going to be happening in the near future. What's going to happen is that AI is going to be used to allow people to plan better. And we want the people making those lethal decisions to have as much information as possible, and we want them to be removed from danger. I don't want the kill decision over an ambiguous target to be made by a tired, sleep-deprived 19-year-old kid who's worried that he's about to be shot in the head. That's not how you get the most rational decision.
The development of AI raises many geopolitical concerns, and the technology is only getting smarter. So how much smarter do we want our computers to become? Coming up, AI versus AGI, when computers can do everything a human can. Will we be cohabitating with robots in the future?
The answer to that is already yes. Future's already here.
Moving forward on phase 1. See how the
Artificial intelligence is about to enter the 5th generation of telecom. We've been talking about AI for a while, but all of a sudden now we're on the doorstep of much faster computers, right?
Mm-hmm.
How does 5G change all of this?
I think 5G is really part of the data collection network, and the more data you have, the more capabilities you have to do these types of analysis.
Think about this for a second. Right now, this program is coming in here through Dish Network. It's not coming in through here through a cable as far as a server that's located, let's say, 25 miles from here, that's bringing all this information in here to my TV. This is being done electronically, frequencies through a dish, digitally, being sent from a satellite way up in space, where it's probably, I don't know, 60 below zero or more, up there floating around. And this satellite is bringing these frequencies down and shooting them directly down to this satellite, and then it's being transferred from the satellite through a cable system back into this TV set. And that's the reason why that you can see the images that you're seeing right now. This is all part of AI, artificial intelligence. It's part of that in which what I told you about earlier, that the Bible talks about the depths of Satan. These are not natural origins. Natural origins is running water. Natural origins is running streams. Natural origins is the sun coming up. Natural origins is the wind blowing and rain and feel the warmth of sunlight on your face. Natural origins is the ground and the substance that's come from the ground. Mankind is no longer dealing with natural substances whenever they're dealing with stuff like this. Even electricity, even the Wright brothers that learned how to fly an airplane was dealing with a type of artificial intelligence back 100 years ago or better. And now it is growing disproportionately speaking to where we are today. You can only imagine where it's going to be at 10, 12, 15, 20 years down the road. So if you don't hop on board now towards trying to keep up with its abilities, odds are you're going to be left behind. You have to be adaptable. You have to be willing to use your mind in sinking into these areas and trying to figure out how to do, what not to do, because eventually it's going to get to the point that you probably won't even be able to order your meal without some sort of artificial intelligence. You're probably not even going to be able to pump your gas or plug your car up to some sort of electrical cord to charge your car up. It's all leaning towards a rotation of evolving into this beast that I believe the Bible told us about, warned us about thousands of years ago.
It has come a long way since simple mobile calls to today being the fastest infrastructure network. Combined with artificial intelligence will mean that an AI-empowered computer can analyze data that much faster. But with computers enabling so much so fast, replacing jobs in the process, it is worth questioning just how smart we really want machines to become. Are we heading toward a future like the one seen in the Terminator film franchise, where machines become so smart they want to take over the human race?
Do you see a time where a machine can actually take on intellectual tasks that a human can do?
Not for a long time. And if it replaces humans altogether, we have totally different problems.
But Tesla founder Elon Musk has been sounding the alarm on AI without proper oversight for years. In 2017, Musk tweeted this: China, Russia, soon all countries with strong computer science Competition for AI superiority at a national level, most likely the cause of World War III, in my opinion. Musk himself co-founded OpenAI, a company which recently received $1 billion from Microsoft to develop computers which will mimic the human brain. While artificial intelligence is used largely to help people by taking on routine tasks today, the machines are not generally intelligent. They are fast learners and very good at certain functions, but they can't reason or problem solve, show emotion, or apply one idea to a different task the way the human brain can. With artificial general intelligence, a machine will be able to teach itself.
If you ask a machine to say, hey, create a business plan and launch a startup, I mean, we wouldn't even know how to start, right? That's a very general form of intelligence that requires understanding the world, creativity, working with people, forming teams, raising capital.
So at some point, could that computer end up understanding how to put a business plan together based on the knowledge inputted in there?
If the question ultimately is, could an artificial form of intelligence exist? I think the answer scientifically is yes. Whether we have enough understanding as to be able to create such a thing, and for us to understand the nature of intelligence so that we could create an artificial version of it.
So when will humans be coexisting with robots? Is it 10 years away? 50? 100?
The thing about artificial intelligence is that you can see these huge leaps that are out of nowhere. I mean, 10 years ago, you couldn't have imagined the things that are being done with AI today. And then because of a few breakthroughs, we've been able to do incredible things in just a few years. And I think that there's a chance that that happens again. I mean, the hypothetical kind of a general artificial intelligence, an AI that's actually conscious, for example, I think we're a pretty long way away from that. But hypothetically, it could happen tomorrow, And we need to be ready for when those types of jumps do happen.
Can humans exist when you've got machines that are godlike?
I mean, there have been science fiction movies made about this, but in the long run, the amount of power such an intelligent machine will bring is something that we really don't even have the vocabulary, I think, to talk about how to cope with it. So they'll be godlike in their ability to understand their powers, and I think that's a challenge for us long term.
Whether we ultimately see the kind of general intelligence that produces the Terminator is hard to know. Are we headed for art imitating life? I'm Maria Bartiromo. Thanks for watching.
It's pretty obvious that something supernatural is at work here. Kind of like the physics of your brain communicating, giving out signals from one brain cell to another. These things are being done simultaneously in our brains to the point that we don't even know that it's occurring. The left side of your brain tells the right side of your body what to do. The right side of your brain tells the left side of your body what to do. When you have all these developments that are
and very good at
that are occurring simultaneously in the world, humans have been the world's worst in making predictions about stuff. I'm going to just use global warming as an analogy of saying that, we're not going to have to worry about the atmosphere warming up the ocean waters 1.5, 2 degrees or 3 degrees for probably 50 years. And then they backed it down to 20 years. And now they're saying that it may be 10 years. The fact of the matter is, we really don't know. We don't know when the breakthrough is going to come towards going over that precipice to the point of no return in regard to atmospheric climate crisis of the polars melting and etc. The same way with artificial intelligence. We really don't know when that breakthrough is going to occur to the point that robots become as smart, if not smarter than us, to the point that they can multitask, they can multi-think, they can inadvertently do things that human beings would and could not never imagine towards doing. And it has almost reached that level today in regard to artificial intelligence, towards what it can do and how it can perceive humans in touching and thinking and having feelings, emotions, knowing the difference between hot and cold, loud, soft tones, loud tones. It's all part of its design in its intelligence to be able to evolve into the next level that it feels like that it needs to go into. Good luck to all of us as we adventure off into 20 and 20 in this next decade to come towards what's ahead and what's to be expected. Nanu Nanu, Mark and Mindy, the Bionic Woman, the $6 Million Man. Welcome to the 21st century.